Alright, it is time to preview the midweek games. And in this midweek edition of Matchweek number 27, we have 4 games, and we have 2 games that it just does not get any better in terms of playoff chances and what is at stake in terms of the playoff race, which of course I will get to both of these games. But first, we're going to be talking about the Red Bulls who take on Houston. So the Red Bulls are 2 points behind they're 2 points behind Atlanta for that Supporters Shield race. And Houston just drew 1-1 to FC Dallas at home in the Texas Derby, which pretty much unofficially eliminated themselves from playoff contention. And even though on paper this looked like it should be an easy win for the Red Bulls because Houston, they do not do well on the road. One thing I'm concerned about the Red Bulls coming into this game is got to be fatigue level. Because, like I said in the review, when they play against DC United, they definitely look very fatigued right near the end of the game. And I wonder in this game, would Chris Armas actually have enough of a balls to decide to make some rotation in this game? I mean, I know at this point of the season and how they are still chasing against Atlanta, it would be kind of dumb and doesn't make a lot of sense of why would Chris Armas decide to switch it up and pretty much trying to hope that the guys that he put that usually are on the bench will do the job in this game and that they're facing an easier opponent. But when you look at how the players on this team is kind of fatigued and stuff like that, maybe he's kind of have to force to do that. But either way, it is a very kind of tough decision for him, and certainly we will find out what is his decision going to be. Does he decide to start the same starting 11 and start another strong team against the Dynamos, even though they are playing a team that is not very good at all so far at this season, and certainly are definitely not good at all on the road. So we'll see how the Red Bulls will be playing in this game, and you could say that the Red Bulls got to win this one. I mean, there's no doubt about how there's just no excuse if they drop points against Houston. And if they do, I think that they could potentially be out of the Supporters Shield race and that Atlanta could just cruise their way near the end and that they can potentially win that one easily. But now moving on into the 2 games that I'm pretty sure you're here for, and the 2 games that I'm pretty sure everybody will pay attention to, especially if you're a fan of either of these teams in those 2 games. But we start off with DC United taking on Philly, and for DC United, they are 9 points behind the Union, who is in 5th place, but they have 2 games in hand over the Union. And they are 6 points behind Montreal for that final playoff spot, but they have 4 games in hand over the Impacts. And, you know, I think right now when you look at the Eastern Conference kind of playoff race, I feel like right now it's kind of now down to 2 teams, and probably down to 2 teams that is fighting for 1 spot, and that, of course, is that 6th spot. And when you look at the other team that DC United is fighting for that last spot, that is TFC, it looks like TFC, or not TFC, but DC United are the one that potentially are kind of in the driving seat and are in a better position because, you know, TFC, although they are also 6 points behind the Impact, they only have 2 games in hand over the Impact, and that DC United does have more game in hand over them. However, DC United does have a lot of games that they have to play, and I think they have the most game they have to play for the remaining of the season, which means that they're going to get a lot of these kind of games where they have to play a game on the weekend, and then they have to go straight back in and have to play a midweek game, and then they have to play in a weekend game. And when you have that many games in a short amount of time, and especially the fact that you look at this DC United team and how they don't really have a lot of depth in this team, you wonder will the players get tired out, and that you wonder with playing so many games, and these are not just any game for them. These are high pressure and high stake game for DC United. With all these home game remain, they got to treat these home game like it's a cup final for them. That if they lose one of these home games, it could really damage their hope of potentially making the playoffs. And, it all starts in this game against Philly. And, even though it's kind of a 6-pointer for both of these teams, I think this is a game that DC United needs to win more than Philly. Because I think Philly, they kind of in the last couple of games built a pretty good gap between themselves and dropping below the playoff line, and that they have kind of a little bit of luxury of potentially dropping points or losing a couple of games and not have to worry them going back into a dogfight with these two other teams for the spot in the playoffs. But you just think that DC United, the pressure is definitely on them for this game, and that this is the one that they have to win against Philly in this home game at Audi Field. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it's going to play out. And, speaking of TFC, and since I kind of bring TFC into this game, why not we talk about this game too between the Portland Timbers and TFC? Because like this one between DC United and Philly, this is also a high-stake playoff kind of race kind of game, and that it's kind of a 6-pointer for both of these teams, because for TFC, they certainly have less amount of game that DC United has in terms of catching Montreal in that last spot in the playoff race, and that they need to win a lot of their remaining games if they want to make the playoffs, and the fact that they also have less home games than what DC United has so far. But they are playing against a Timber side that certainly they kind of are really desperate of actually getting back to the winning column. I mean, if Portland lose this game, I think that would be 5 losses in a row, which would equal the longest losing streak that they have in their franchise history. And, despite the fact that Portland does have 3 games in hand over the Galaxy, and they're only 1 point behind the Galaxy, and they also have, I think, a game in hand over Seattle, and they're also only 1 point behind Seattle in that playoff race in the Western Conference. Portland does have a stretch where they have to play 3 games in 7 days, and that after this game, they have to travel all the way across the other side of the country to play against the Revs in a very kind of short kind of rest kind of game. And, we already seen what happened with Portland when they had short rests and had to travel all the way across the other side of the country. It definitely did not end very well for them. So, for the Timbers, if they want to potentially avoid themselves getting into a situation where they don't take advantage of these games that they have in hand, and they don't stop losing some of these games that they've been losing in a row, then yeah, they could be finding themselves in a sticky situation. And, this is a very tough one for the Timbers, and especially just 3 days after they suffer that loss to their Cascadia rival, and certainly they will be very devastated with that loss, consider they were definitely the better team in that game. These Timbers players got to show some resilience and need to show that kind of short memory kind of focus of just forget about what happened in that Cascadia derby and move on to this game that has a lot of playoff implication for them and also for the opponent. But yeah, with that being said, moving on into the final game, and into a game that I'm pretty sure nobody will pay attention, except if you're a Quakes fan and FC Dallas fan. And even me, I kind of feel like I don't want to pay attention in this game because of what happened to the last game the Quakes play, and the fact that I am actually not going to be attending this game. This will be the first home game that I have going to be missed whole season long, and the reason why I'm missing this game is that I'm going to boycott this game. I refuse to go to the Quakes game with the way that they are in such a turmoil right now, and that I think I'm going to emphasize this. I'm going to underline this 3 times But since the Quakes are doing so bad right now, and that there's really just nothing to lose for this team and nothing to really gain for this team, they need to play the kids. They need to play the kids. They need to give a couple of these youngsters a chance. Guys like Jackson Yu, Tommy Thompson, and even Mark Sinkowski. How many times have I said throughout the season that I want Mark Sinkowski to be in there? And then some people just told me that, no, Mark Sinkowski is not ready yet and that we should wait and stuff like that. Well, what are we waiting for? He's performing for Reno 1868, and you look at how Tarbell has been throughout the season. I mean, it's time where we got to put Mark Sinkowski in there. And like I said, for the rest of the season, there's really nothing to lose for this team. Like, the Quakes, their season is done. We're out of the playoffs. I mean, we might not be eliminated in the playoffs, but we are pretty much going to be eliminated in the playoffs in these next couple of games. So now I think it's a good time for us to just play the kids. And since MLS does not have a relegational system and that teams can just don't have to worry about relegation even though they're in last place, then they should be started to play their kids and really started to try it out and experiment with the squad. And really, I think for the rest of the season, the Quakes got to treat the rest of the game not as kind of a competitive game, but just kind of like almost a friendly game. I mean, there's really not much to fight for this team, and I'm going to say it again. They got to play the kids, give the kids some chances, try to change the formation, trying to just kind of experiment, and maybe if things finally get it correctly, then that of course might be something that we could build on. But at the end of the day, I think the only reason why that probably won't happen is because Michael Sarhe is still the manager of this team. And I really think right now, I know we don't have a good coach that we were thinking about hiring in the future, but I just think with the team are pretty much in a lost season right now, and that the rest of the games, even if we win the rest of our games, I don't think we're going to actually make the playoffs, then why not sack Starhay right now and bring in a guy like maybe Chris Leach, for example, bring some young talent and experiment with the squad. And heck, I felt like as long as if the Quakes are trying to experiment with the squad and trying to play their kids and trying to build on the future, I don't give a shit if they lose 6-0 or 7-0 to opponent. In fact, speaking of 7-0 or 6-0, that is the only thing that is left in the bingo chart of the Quakes' misery of bingo, or the Quakes' bingo of misery. So again, like I said, I'm hoping we can start finally experiment the team, and I hope finally the front office can have a wake-up call and just do the right thing, as I have been saying many times. And yeah, we'll see what happened in this game against FC Dallas. And interestingly, FC Dallas is one of the 2 teams that we have beaten this season. Although I don't think it's going to happen again, consider the way this team is and how we got it felt like that FC Dallas win was clearly a fluke and that we kind of got lucky in that game. So yeah, I'm going to say it again, and this is going to be the final time I'm going to say it. Play the kit, sack Starhay out, and start building on the future. But yeah, either way, that is pretty much it for my preview of this and kind of a little rant that I have once again with the Quakes. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.